I think I'm live. Welcome. Let me just check and see. Where are you tuning in from? This is Nina. I'm here on my own. Sal is out of town, as some of you may know, so we're not going to be doing a Daf Yomi class today. Instead, I'm going to offer something a little different, a different kind of Jewish wisdom, and that is called Musar. So Musar is the Jewish ethical teachings to refine character and become a better person. So let me make sure that I'm live. Yay, I am live. Okay, I'm just going to take 1 second to share this to the Accidental Talmudist Forum, which is our Facebook group. Okay, I'm doing it now. Forum, bada bing. Okay, welcome. So tell me, where are you tuning in from? How are you doing tonight? This is a lovely Sunday evening in LA, and I'm thrilled and honored to be with you in Sal's absence. So some of you were here yesterday. I started this short little series on Musar, again, character refinement, and using Jewish teachings to be a better person. Now, Sal usually teaches Talmud, which is very deep and rich. It's a treasure trove of information, but it can often be arcane, and you really need to be very intellectual and focused to understand it. And I'm not in any way qualified to teach Talmud, so I'm going to be teaching something that is more accessible and maybe simpler, more basic, and hopefully I'll share some good nuggets of wisdom that you can take into your life with you. I'm going to focus my teachings on bringing down the wisdom of one of my favorite rabbis, Rabbi Avigdor Miller, who is one of the truly great sages of the 20th century. He was one of the first to teach in English and to disseminate his teachings widely through cassette tapes. He recorded all of his lectures. And Rabbi Miller taught that we have an obligation to climb the ladder of greatness in our lives, meaning that throughout our life, we need to be climbing one step at a time, one rung of a time, to elevating our character to be the best person that we possibly can be. And this is a lifelong practice, and it's an obligation for all of us, an obligation for Jews, and I would say probably for all human beings. We should all try to be the best people that we can be. So on that ladder of greatness, there's two rungs. We're going up the step. There's two pillars of the ladder, and one of the pillars we talked about yesterday was gratitude. So Rabbi Miller taught that we have two purposes in this world. One purpose is to be aware of God's presence, that this is the world that God created, that Hashem created, and there's blessings and miracles all around us. And if we could just study them, notice them, and internalize that gratitude, then we could achieve that constant awareness of God. So it is taught in the morning blessings that I say every single day. One of the first is the beginning of wisdom is the fear of Hashem. The fear of Hashem also could mean the awe, the awareness of God. It's the very beginning of wisdom. And like we discussed yesterday, the awareness of God starts with gratitude. Gratitude for the world that God has created and lovingly placed us into it. So that is one pillar of the ladder. But we need another pillar, right? And the other pillar is our behavior. So we're obligated to be aware of God's presence, and we're here to make God proud of us. Our job is to make our Creator proud, just as our children make us proud, just as there's nothing like the pride of a parent when your child is doing something that you're proud. It's a beautiful feeling, and we want to give that feeling to God. So how do we do that? Well, we are taught that God has 13 character attributes. There's 13 divine qualities of God that we are meant to emulate. And I would say the first one, and perhaps the most important one, is chesed, is loving kindness. We are obligated to be kind to others. It sounds so basic, but it's basic because it's crucial, it's fundamental. We have to be kind, and Rabbi Miller said we have to learn how to be kind. As I mentioned yesterday, it's great to want to be a good person, but it's not enough to want to be a good person or to consider that you are a good person. You need to work at it, and you need to learn the steps and the tools and the technology for how to do it. So the word Musar appears in the Jewish Bible 51 times, and most of those times are in the book of Proverbs. Some of you may remember that Sal and I last month did a live reading of the entire book of Proverbs. And the book of Proverbs, what it's about is, here's how you are a good person. It was written by the wisest man who ever lived, King Solomon, and it's the form of advice to, this is how you serve God in this world, and this is how you make God proud. And that's what it's all about, right? So how do you do it? How do you practice loving kindness in your day-to-day life? Well, Rabbi Miller taught that when we smile on others, God smiles on us. And he didn't just mean that metaphorically. He meant literally, smile. Smile at people. It's something so easy. It's available to virtually everybody, and it really makes a difference. When you walk into a room with a smile on your face, you bring a little bit of sunshine. And when you walk into a room looking sad and gloomy, you certainly don't add anything, and you may even detract a little from the mood in that room. So it's easy, it's free, it's pretty much available to everybody. Just smile more. Somebody asked him, well, what if I don't feel like smiling? Am I supposed to just fake it? Am I supposed to deceive others into thinking that I'm in a good mood when I'm really not, when it's just a fake smile, a grimace almost plastered on my face? And Rabbi Miller said, yes, you should deceive others. He said, be a master of deceit. You should go through your life being a master of deceit and making people think that you're happy, even if you're not. And he said that the more you smile, even if it's fake and deceitful, the more naturally that smile will come to you. And this isn't just a Jewish teaching. This is a universal teaching. I remember many, many years ago, I listened to some tapes of Tony Robbins. And one of the really great takeaways from that was he said the exact same thing. He said, smile, even if you don't feel like it, and pretty soon you will feel like smiling. And smiling is a very easy way to bring a little sunshine and to make other people feel good. It doesn't cost anything, and it's something we all can work on. He also said it's not just about smiling. We should have expression on our face, okay? Expression is the universal language. So, God could have given us eyes and a nose and a mouth. He could have enabled us to speak but our faces could have been stiff. But no, our faces can make all kinds of expressions. We can look surprised, and we can look joyful, and we could look interested. And Rabbi Miller said that when we're interacting with another person, we should use our facial expressions to indicate that we're listening, that we're really interested in what they're saying. So smiling is important, and it's also important to use all the muscles of our face to indicate our emotion and to indicate that we are connecting with the person that we're talking to. Now, we are taught that man, or humans, were made in the image of God, and that means that when we see another human being, we are looking into the face of God. So it's an opportunity for us, in a way, to actually interact with God. Everyone has a piece of God inside them, and we could be said that all of us are pieces of God. This is something that Sal likes to talk about, is that we are all inside Hashem. We're all inside God. And so we should smile, and we should use our facial expressions to make other people feel that we care about them. We're listening to what they say. One of my favorite movies is the great classic Sunset Boulevard, directed by Billy Wilder, about the washed-up, aging silent movie star Norma Desmond, whose career was made obsolete by the advent of talking pictures. And there's one of the most famous lines, really, in movie history is when she says, "We didn't need words. We had faces then." I'm a movie buff. I love watching old silent movies, and it's incredible just how much you can express silently with your face. And that's the universal language. I'm sure that anywhere you go in the world, a smile is a smile. And, looking interested, and your eyes are bright, and you're engaging, even if you don't understand what they're saying. Since the Tower of Babel, we speak all different languages around the world. But we still have ways to communicate, and one of them is by using our face and using our expressions and smiling as much as we can. He said, You need to be nice to everyone. It sounds almost like a cliche, but think about it. Are we really always nice to everyone that we meet? Of course, as the saying goes, charity begins at home. It's most important to be nice to the people closest to us. But we really have an obligation to be nice to everyone. And we need to speak in a soft and kind manner. Even when somebody comes at us with anger, we need to respond with sweetness, calmness. That's one of the most challenging things, I think, and it's one of the Proverbs, I think 15:1, speak softly to somebody who speaks to you with anger. And the reason it needs to be said is because it is challenging. It is not something easy. Somebody comes to you with anger, you want to hit that anger right back. And anger it can be a rush, right? The adrenaline of being angry. But it's a sin. It's actually a very big sin in Judaism is to be anger and to be angry and to express anger is very bad. It's a very, very bad thing. So that's something that some of us, like me, need to work on a little more, and some of us maybe aren't as prone to anger. But something to remember that anger is a sin. He says, don't use mean words with anybody, especially your spouse. So Sal, you may be watching. Sal's out of town right now. If you're watching, I'm so sorry for all the times that I've used angry words with you and with the kids. It's something that I really regret and I want to work on, and I am working on. And it's something for us all to remember. I think we live in an age when sometimes it seems like people are too sensitive about the words that people use, and people are easily offended, but there's some truth to that. We should not use mean words to people. We should speak in a kind and sweet and loving way to everybody. And remembering always that when we look at another person, we're looking at the face of God and we're interacting with a little piece of God. He said also, don't use mean words, and don't use mean words against yourself. Now, there's a concept in Judaism called Lashon Hara, which is translated as evil tongue. Now, we could teach a whole class, an endless class in Lashon Hara. It's such an important concept in Judaism. And there's very different manifestations of Lashon Hara, but one of the most commonly addressed ones is gossip. We cannot gossip. We cannot talk about people behind their back. We can't say bad things. We can't even say good things about them. And it doesn't matter if it's true or not. We should not gossip. Now, before I became observant and before I realized and learned that gossip is very bad, that was one of my favorite pastimes. I had friends and what we would do together was gossip. But don't do it. It's very bad. If you don't want people to talk about you, you don't, and you shouldn't talk about other people. And it's really hard, actually, to not do it and to find other things to talk about. Because as humans, we're interested in other people. I mean, there's nothing to me more interesting than humans. So of course we want to analyze and talk about them, but it's very dangerous. And our sages teach that when we gossip and when we gossip about somebody behind their back, it's actually a form of killing. It kills the soul. It's a form of murder. And 3 people are killed when we gossip. Ourselves, the one who's gossiping, the one we're gossiping about, and the one who's listening to the gossip. So it's like taking a pile of toxic filth and throwing it on yourself, the person you're talking to, and spreading it over to the person you're talking about. So that's something that's very important. We don't talk about people behind their back. And Rabbi Miller said, we don't use hurtful words against ourselves. That's something that a lot of us do, and maybe we think it's a form of humility to talk about, we're bad at this or we can't do this. And again, it's something that's very easy to do. But listen, if you believe that God created the world and created all of us, then if you're speaking against yourself, you're disrespecting one of God's creations. You're speaking Lashon Hara, you're gossiping against yourself. And that also is forbidden. Rabbi Miller said that people should like us. It should be important to us that other people like us. They like being around us. Now, that doesn't mean that we should be driven by fear of, well, what are people going to think of me? It's not about what are people going to think of me. It's about I want to be a likable person. I want people to want to be around me. And Rabbi Miller said that, the masses aren't wrong. If everybody doesn't like somebody, that person is not likable. And that person needs to change. It's of crucial importance that we're a blessing to others, that we smile at them, that we engage with them. And when we do that, we will find that they like us. So make sure that people like you. Another thing he said was, don't quarrel with your neighbors, okay? Don't fight with your neighbors, even if they're right. And I would say even not just neighbors, but other people. If in any way you can take the high ground, always choose to do that. But certainly the people that you live with or the people that live next to you, just avoid conflict at any cost, almost any cost, I would say. How do you get people to like you? Well, we talked about smiling and being interested in what they have to say, and connected with being interested in what they have to say is listening to what they have to say, and we can't listen to what they have to say if we're talking. So this is something that Rabbi Miller said many, many times in his writings and his lectures. Be quiet. Shut up. Don't talk so much. One of the great sages of the Talmud, I'm sorry that I don't remember who it was, but one of the great, great sages of Jewish history in Pirkei Avos, the Ethics of the Fathers, which is part of the Mishnah, I believe, said, I have spent my life among the wise, and I have learned there is nothing better than silence. We should all challenge ourselves to only speak when necessary, and when we speak, we should use as few words as possible. So Sal and I, some of you may know, we're filmmakers, we're screenwriters, we're a screenwriting team. And this is really a fundamental rule of screenwriting is, when you finish a draft of a script, you should go through and look at every single word. Is there any word that doesn't have to be there, shouldn't be there? Okay, a good script is one in which every single word is there for a reason, nothing extraneous. And we should live that way. Sal has a bumper sticker, actually it's a magnet on his car that says, nothing nice to say, say nothing. So I think those are words to live by for all of us. I'm not saying you have to be, mute forever, but I think most of us could use that reminder. If you're saying, what you say should be helpful, should be necessary, and if it's negative and there's no point to it, just suck it down. Don't let it come out of your mouth. He said, silence causes people to respect you. And it says in the Gemara, in the Talmud, it says, your words are worth $1, but your silence is worth double. Okay, so as wonderful as it is what you have to say, sometimes, often, not saying anything is the most valuable expression of all. Something else he taught from the Mishnah was, a wise person doesn't speak in the presence of someone greater than him. So this is a little surprising. Rabbi Miller taught that if you're near somebody who's a truly great, righteous, elevated, exceptional, and extraordinary individual, a true tzaddik, a true sage, if you're near that person, let them talk. And even if a third person comes up to you and asks you the time, you still shouldn't talk in the presence of that sage, which seems odd. So somebody's asking you the time and you shouldn't answer. But Rabbi Miller said, if you're in the presence of a sage, let that sage talk. You should not even speak. He said, and the Vilna Gaon, so the Vilna Gaon was one of the greatest rabbis of Jewish history from the Lithuanian school of Torah study. So the Lithuanians, also known as the Litvaks, interestingly, so that's our name, Sal Litvak. And the Litvaks were known for being very erudite, scholarly, experts in Talmud. The Litvaks would spend, the ones, originally from the schools of Lithuania, would spend their days deep, deep in Talmud study, and they were incredibly learned. And I also always think it's so interesting that, Sal did not grow up with a very deep traditional Jewish education. He went to Hebrew school and he had a bar mitzvah and he had a basic level of education, but he never studied Talmud. And as an adult, once he started to grow spiritually, he became interested. He heard about the Talmud. He didn't know what it was. He was curious. And I think many of you who've been with us for a while have heard his famous story about what started him on the path of being the accidental Talmudist. So I'll give it to you in a nutshell. Sal was curious about the Talmud. Now, the Talmud is vast, vast, vast. It's okay. So this is a volume of Talmud, okay? The pages are jam-packed with wisdom. The pages are thin, the type is small, and I believe there's 72 volumes. It's huge. And Sal was curious about it, and there was a Jewish bookstore he used to go into, and he always wondered, but he was kind of intimidated. There's these 72 volumes on the wall, and he doesn't know Hebrew really, and he didn't know where to begin. Finally, one day he decided to do it, and he bought book one, and it turned out that he purchased book one of the Talmud on day one of the 7.5-year Daf Yomi cycle. Okay, so he took that as a sign from God. What are the odds? Well, the odds are 2,711 to 1. That's how many pages there are in the Talmud. And he started from that day reading Talmud, and now, thank God, he's teaching it to you guys. But I always think that this is all Sal, carrying out his destiny. His name is Litvak, and so it was always his destiny as a Litvak to be a Talmud scholar. And thank God that's what he's become, and you're all Talmud scholars with him, those of you who are here for our usual programming, AT Daily. So anyway, talking about the Vilna Gaon, who was really, the great Litvak of the ages. And he said, for every moment that a person restrains his mouth, he is rewarded with the concealed light of which no angel or heavenly creature can conceive. Meaning that when we have something we want to say and it's not really necessary and it's not really nice and we suck it down and we don't say it, God's presence is showered on us. There's nothing more holy and righteous than not speaking when it's the right thing to do not to speak. It's hard, and for that reason, it's worth it. I don't know if I mentioned today, but I mentioned it yesterday, that the word musar, which is what we're talking about now, which is the way to refine your character and be a better person, that word is often translated as discipline, because it takes discipline. It's not just, well, I want to be good, so I'm good. It's, I want to be good, so I'm going to do the work, and I'm going to be disciplined. And if I don't feel like smiling, I'm going to have the discipline to smile. And if I'm not interested in what somebody's saying very much, I'm going to have the discipline to respect them enough to act like I'm interested. And I'm going to have the discipline to not speak when it's not appropriate to speak. Now, something else about speech is tone. The tone we use is so important. Sometimes it's not what we say, but it's how we say it. It can be very hurtful. We may not even realize the damage that our tone can do to people. So, especially with children, especially with children, they really pick up on tone. The other day I was walking down the street and there was a woman with a little girl who must have been like maybe 2 or 3. And the girl like touched a building as she passed. She just kind of reached out her fingers and touched a building. And her mother said, "Stop that! I told you, I keep telling you, if you touch anything, you're gonna get sick." And the way she said it was so harsh. And I understood that she was coming from a good place. We live in an awful time of plague and you never know where germs are gonna be and we have to be so careful. But the way she expressed it, like I could just see in the girl's face was this kind of fear and shame, and it made me cringe, and I'm sure I've been guilty of that too, and I think we've probably all been guilty of that. I mean, I think the mother, something that we're also required to do, something that the Torah teaches us, is to always give others the benefit of the doubt. So in that situation, my first instinct was to think like, what a bad mother, what a mean woman to speak to her child that way. But, giving the benefit of the doubt, she wants to protect her child. Life is scary right now, and she was frustrated that her child could get sick. But we always need to remember to speak to each other in a kind way. Now, on the topic of COVID, first of all, let me just say, please, let's pray, God, please, please heal everybody that has COVID. Heal, may nobody get it. May this plague disappear immediately. May nobody get sick. May nobody, God forbid, die anymore. May the plague end immediately. And please, God, strengthen all those, the healthcare workers and the essential workers and everybody on the front lines. This is a very, very difficult and scary time for all of us. And we should all be praying every day that it will end soon and completely. We can say amen. But one of the things about this time of COVID that is really a unique challenge is, I was just talking about the importance of smiling. Well, how do you smile when you're wearing a mask? There's actually a new word out now called smize, which is smiling with your eyes. And we certainly can have expression in our eyes, but, it's really not the same. And this is, I think, one of the challenges of our era is how do we see the face of God in someone when we don't really see their face? And how do we express interest in someone when we're standing across the room from them? So I would love to hear your guys' thoughts. If anybody has any insights or ideas or examples of how we can connect with others even when there's these artificial barriers of distance and literal barriers on our face. Of course, something that we can do that we all should be doing is reaching out, picking up the phone. There's so many people now that are isolated, that are alone, old people, sick people, all kinds of people. And I think in the beginning of the pandemic, at least for me, I was more focused. And then as the months have gone on, we're just all so weary. But those people, a lot of them are still alone. So let's try to remember to make that phone call and just check in on people who may not have a lot of human interaction right now. That's one of, I think, the biggest tragedies of this awful plague. So now I want to talk about a couple of things. So COVID is one of the things that Rabbi Miller, he passed away in 2001. He didn't live to see COVID, luckily for him, I guess. And some of the other things that he didn't address. Well, so Musar, which is, the practice of refining our character, and all Jewish teachings, they're universal and eternal, meaning that as much as the world changes, we can still use these same principles to navigate the new landscape. So there's a couple of things that didn't exist in the time of Rabbi Miller, and one of them was cell phones. Now, we can all see the way cell phones have just transformed the world, and we spend so much of our time just looking at our phone. And I personally believe it's like crack. We're all addicted. As a parent, it's very hard for me and for all parents now to navigate this world where our kids have phones and they need to be on the internet for, educational reasons and communication, but it's very, very addictive. So I don't really have a solution to that, but we should at least acknowledge that this is, a crack that we're giving our kids and giving ourselves. And something that I've noticed is how now phones can connect us very much, cell phones. It's wonderful. I can be in touch with my family anytime, any place, wherever we are. I can immediately connect with them, and that's beautiful. But phones also form a barrier. And something that I see, so I'm one of the people that really doesn't like masks. I do not like wearing masks. And so some people do. Like, some people are okay with it. Our 15-year-old son, he says it doesn't bother him. Sometimes he'll come home and he'll forget to take off his mask. Like, when I get home, the first thing that I do is rip off that mask. So because I don't like wearing a mask, I really don't leave the house very much these days, which I don't really anyway. I'm kind of a homebody, but now, it seems like since COVID time, pretty much the place I go is the supermarket. And those supermarket workers, they are truly heroes. They're taking their lives in their hands every day, just going to work so that we can have what we need to eat. And so much I see people going through the checkout line on their phone. They don't make eye contact with the checker. They don't say thank you. They don't interact. It's almost like it's one of the self-checkout lanes. And so please, can we all put down our phone when we're interacting with somebody, and certainly when there's somebody that's serving us in some way, whether it is a supermarket worker, whether it is a mail carrier, or the garbage collector, or the FedEx guy. We need to take a moment to look at them, to have our facial expression that we're interested, that we see the face of God in their face. And just to make a little small talk, or just to say hello, good morning, how are you doing today, as opposed to just going through that line on our phone or with the little things. Now everybody's got the earbuds in their ears, and I have them too, and they're great. But it sometimes can be very alienating because somebody's talking and you think they're talking to you, but they're actually not. And so much I've seen people go through the checkout line like that. So let's try to not do that. Let's try that when somebody's doing something for us, even if it's just ringing up our groceries, that's a piece of God right there. And let's not miss that opportunity to smile on them so that God will smile on us, right? And the other thing that Rabbi Miller did not fully live to see is the internet. I don't have to tell you that the internet really can represent the ugliest, worst of humanity and worst that this planet has to offer. There's so much pornography, which is just horrific. I think that's pure poison that just infects everybody that makes it, watches it, is married to somebody that watches it. It's just awful. And there's so much of that, as we know, on the internet. And there's so much incitement and nastiness and hate. And something that Sal and I think, are trying to do in our little way is elevate the internet and elevate social media into a force for good, into a force for spreading goodness and joy and coming together and sharing the light of God and the light of Jewish wisdom. Because anything in this world can be used for good or bad. A phone can be good or bad. The internet can be good or bad. And so when we're on the internet, another rabbi that I'm very fond of that I listen to is Rabbi Yosef Mizrahi. And he taught that comment threads on the internet are mass murder machines. He said that people, again, it's the metaphor of when you speak meanly to someone, you're killing a little part of their soul. It's a form of a murder. And Rabbi Mizrahi teaches that, if you read these comment threads, they're filled with insults and just ugliness. And it's awful. People, maybe because they're not seeing the faces and it's just a disembodied name with maybe a tiny little profile pic, and people seem to have the freedom to speak in such a nasty way, insulting people. And when you do that, first of all, who knows how many thousands of people are going to see that comment? So you're humiliating something publicly is a huge, huge sin in Judaism and Jewish teaching. So when you insult somebody online, that's a form of public humiliation. Who knows how many people are seeing that? And even if you think better of it and delete your comment, well, somebody might have screenshotted it. So just for me personally, I would say, if you find yourself on social media arguing with somebody in a comment thread, somebody you don't know, or even somebody you know, and you're insulting each other, let me just tell you something. There's something better you could do. Why don't you just put yourself away from the computer and pick up the phone and call a friend, or reach out to somebody who's isolated. I think it's very rare that arguing with somebody in a comment thread is going to lead to anything good, and it could lead to something very bad. Another Jewish teaching is that we are taught to number our days. We are taught to be very aware of just how short life is. So there's not enough time to be insulting strangers on the internet. So let's all imagine if all of us, instead of arguing in comment threads, and of course, believe me, not all of you are guilty of that, but to people who are, and it's many of us, if we could just stop doing that and instead make a phone call or reach out to somebody or even just smile at somebody, that in itself would change the world. So now so that's the teachings that I have for you today. But I want to now, one of the things that Rabbi Miller was great at was giving little bite-sized exercises that we can do that are not difficult to do, but that are rungs on that ladder to greatness, on that ladder to elevating our character. So one of the things he said was, spend 30 seconds a day contemplating the great gift of clothing. He said you can actually just set a timer and for 30 seconds think about how great it is, clothing. And what I love about Rabbi Miller is he would go deep. He wouldn't just say, be thankful for clothing. He would say, be thankful for buttonholes, that buttonholes are sewed around the buttonholes so that it doesn't rip when you put the button through. Be thankful for zippers. The zipper is a brilliant invention. Imagine how much easier our lives are with zippers. So spend 30 seconds thinking about the clothes on your body. They feel good. They keep us warm. They're attractive looking. We have all different. We can mix and match. It's a way to express ourselves. The way they function, we don't have to make our own clothes anymore. We can just buy them ready-made. So think for 30 seconds a day about being grateful for clothing. Another little exercise was, he said, spend 1 minute a day thinking about yesterday. And this is something that we're actually commanded to do every night when we're lying in bed. We should go back over the events of the day and think, okay, what did I do wrong today? What can I resolve I'm going to do better tomorrow? Did anybody wrong me today, and can I forgive them? So as we go through life, there should always be times for reflection, either reflection on this past day or reflection on yesterday. We shouldn't just let life pass us by. Some great philosopher said the unexamined life is not worth living. Descartes, or I don't know who it was, but anyway, we need to examine our life, examine our deeds in an honest way as we go through life. So Avigdor Miller said, if you could just spend 1 minute a day doing that, beautiful. You're climbing that ladder to greatness. Another one he said is do one act of kindness every day that only Hashem knows about, only God knows about, nobody else knows about. So maybe it's cleaning up after someone when they don't realize it, or picking up a banana peel from the street and throwing it away, doing the dishes without mentioning it. There's all kinds of little things that we can do that only we know and only God knows, and we don't need to make a big deal about it. So one of the greatest acts of kindness we're taught that we can do is helping the dead, meaning there's a ritual way that we wash that we wash a dead body, that we pray in the presence. We do not allow a dead person to remain alone in a room, and we give them a proper burial. And that's considered the ultimate act of kindness because it's an act of kindness that cannot be reciprocated. So kindness is that you're not expecting anything in return and you're not expecting any thanks. That's in a way the highest form of kindness. So anytime that you can do an act of kindness without anybody knowing about it, that's very, very holy and righteous. He also said, every day, pick a part of the body to be grateful for. I am so grateful for my thumbs. My opposable thumbs are amazing. Think of what we can do with our opposable thumbs. Or our knees, and we can bend our knees and we can run. Or hair. It's so nice to have hair. It keeps our head warm and we can style it. And, so think every day, pick one part of the body. My fingernail. I'm really grateful that I have a fingernail. Or my eyelashes. It's endless. It's infinite. You can think about the parts of the body inside you. I'm thankful for my kidneys. So 1 minute a day, again, you can set a timer and just pick a part of the body that I'm going to be thankful for this part of the body today. Another thing he said was, this is so important, to encourage somebody. We're taught that God lifts up the humble, and so too we should lift up the humble. If we're somebody that encourages others, that's very, very important and very righteous. He said, even if you can, he suggested that you write an anonymous note to somebody saying, you're doing a great job. And then you're kind of doing both of the things. You're doing something good without getting credit for it, and you're encouraging and you're lifting people up. It's so important to do that. And most importantly, as I said, is when you look at another person, even if they're wearing a mask, remind yourself, I'm looking at the face of God right now. And what am I going to do when I look at the face of God? I'm going to smile. I'm going to smile. And even if you don't feel like smiling, make yourself smile. It's a beautiful thing to do. So that's what I have for us today. Now let me see if anybody's got anything interesting to say in the comments. The unexamined life is not worth living. Yes, is that not what I said? Oh, Socrates said it. The unexamined life is not worth living. Thank you, Google, and thank you, John Shore, for that. Oh, hang on. Not all the comments are showing up. Let me... Okay, hang on. Let me see if I can get the comments up. I want to see what you guys are saying. Okay, here we go. Tamara says, I've done it with people shopping in the supermarket. I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to, but maybe in terms of doing kindnesses or seeing the face of God in others. I don't know. But whatever it is, if you're doing it in the supermarket, that's great. Michelle Mickey Trester. Oh, sweetie, this is one of my oldest and dearest friends. I'm so glad to see you here. Michelle Mickey Trester is a beautiful person, and I always see the face of God in your face. Nicholas Ackerman, thanks for encouraging people to reach out to isolated and alone individuals. If nothing else, maybe this period of COVID will teach us to get in the habit of doing that, because it's essential now, but there's always people that are alone and isolated, even when, and may it be soon, this plague ends. Yosef says, I was scared at first to work in the supermarket, but it's an opportunity to show the light of Torah. Absolutely. Many years ago, I worked in a supermarket, and it was so long ago that we didn't even have the automatic scanning stuff. You had to actually punch it in. But it was a fun job because you did get to kind of interact with people, and you'd see the same people coming in. It was an organic, it was kind of like a Whole Foods kind of place. So I think it's a good experience for everybody to work in a supermarket at some point in their life. Melissa says, we are losing sight of our interpersonal skills and humanity. Exactly. Let us never lose sight of our humanity and the humanity of others. David is watching from Notre Dame, Indiana, USA. And Carolyn says, thanks for sharing your time and wisdom via this short but necessary series of learning. Yeah, I think sometimes these shorter classes that have like kind of short little bite-sized nuggets, I think are helpful to people to just take something with you and bring it into your day and bring it into your life and climbing up the ladder of greatness. Krista says, thank you. I'm so glad all of you guys are here. Suzanne says, it helps to forgive, but better to avoid people who insult you. Yes. Yeah. If there's somebody that habitually insults you, if you can, definitely avoid that person. Good idea. Carolyn says, does this ladder help to define a righteous Gentile? Absolutely. I mean, like I said, I think the great thing about Musar is I really think it's universal. I mean, I think smiling is the universal language. Gratitude is a universal value. Seeing the goodness in others and giving other people the benefit of the doubt and not gossiping and tale-bearing behind people's backs. That's not just for Jews. This is absolutely universal wisdom. And Marjorie says, smiling also changes your tone of voice. That's very interesting. I never thought of that. And maybe that's even something that could come through despite a mask. If maybe somebody can hear the smile in our voice. I don't know. That's a beautiful concept. Let's see. Melissa says, you've helped me to change my perspective and curb my temper. Yes, that is my issue too. I'll admit it. I definitely have temper issues, and so that's a lifelong area that I need to work on. And Mickey says, I believe it will take time for people to beef up their interpersonal skills once COVID is beaten. Be patient with each other. Very good point, Mickey. So many of us are like, we're not really used to interacting with others that much anymore. So we got to, get that muscle back in gear. So let's all be patient with each other in that area and in every area. And may we all see the face in God and others, and may we all smile to the best of our ability. And even if it's a fake smile, I think any smile is better than no smile. So thank you so much for being here with us. Sal will be back with our usual programming, God willing, this Friday. And for the days of the Daf Yomi Talmud study that he missed, he's going to be doing kind of, highlights of those days. So he's out of town right now, hopefully having a great time with the kids, some little father-kid time, but he will, God willing, be back on Friday. So may you all be blessed with all good things, and may you stay healthy and safe. And thank you for being here, and I look forward to our next time together.